It was Good Friday, April 6, 2012, in the quaint town of Itararé, São Paulo, Brazil. The community was abuzz with anticipation for their annual Easter play, The Passion of the Christ, a tradition that turned the somber tale of Jesus' final days into a live spectacle. Among the actors was Tiago Klimek, a 27-year-old who took on the daunting role of Judas Iscariot, the infamous disciple who betrayed Jesus and met a grim end. Tiago was no rookie. With 3 years of performing under his belt, he knew the role, the stage, and, most importantly, the safety equipment. A harness, courtesy of the local fire department, was his key to pulling off the dramatic hanging scene without a hitch. Or, so everyone thought. The play began, drawing the audience into the story. Tiago waited in the wings, ready for his pivotal moment. As Judas, his role demanded he enact the traitor's remorseful demise by hanging himself from a tree, a scene rehearsed numerous times with precision. When the moment arrived, Tiago climbed a small ladder, attached to the harness, and prepared for his performance. The crowd was transfixed as he jumped, his figure swaying like a pendulum. It was hauntingly convincing, too convincing, because unbeknownst to the audience, something had gone terribly wrong. The safety vest under his costume had shifted at the worst possible moment. Instead of cushioning his fall, it tightened like a vice around his neck. For 4 agonizing minutes, Tiago struggled to breathe. To the audience and actors, it looked like a masterful portrayal of agony. A few might have even applauded his commitment to realism. It wasn't until fellow actor Janaína Carvalho delivered her scripted lines and Tiago failed to respond that someone sensed the performance had taken a deadly turn. Panic rippled through the cast. Actors rushed to his aid, scrambling for a way to free him. Enter Luis Carlos Rosner, a sandwich vendor who became an unlikely hero, or rather, his knife did. When an actor sprinted to him, pleading for a blade, Luis hesitated for a moment before handing it over. Tiago was quickly cut down and rushed to Santa Casa Hospital, but the damage was already done. Severe oxygen deprivation had caused cerebral anoxia, essentially catastrophic brain damage. Doctors placed Tiago in a medically induced coma, clinging to slim hopes of recovery. For 17 harrowing days, family and friends prayed for a miracle that never came. On April 22, 2012, the life support was turned off and Tiago Klimek was pronounced dead. The tragedy sent shockwaves through the community. What was meant to be a symbolic act of betrayal and redemption had turned into an unimaginable real-life horror. In the wake of Tiago's death, questions swirled. How could this happen? An investigation launched immediately. The harness and rope, both borrowed from the local fire department, were examined at the Instituto de Criminalística in Sorocaba. Lead investigator Jose Victor Bassetti wrestled with theories. Was the knot improperly tied? Did part of Tiago's costume snag on the equipment, triggering the fatal malfunction? The answers were slow to come, buried under layers of confusion, grief, and bureaucracy. But one thing was clear: a community united in faith had experienced a profound and painful loss. Tiago's death turned a theatrical portrayal of sacrifice into a sobering reminder of life's fragile unpredictability. For those who witnessed the play, that Good Friday became unforgettable, but for all the wrong reasons. On May 30th, 2015, the sun greeted Kailua Kona, Hawaii, with a golden glow that promised another picturesque day by the Hanoka House small boat harbor. Among the early risers was Captain Randy Lanes, a legendary figure in the sport fishing world. With over 25 years of experience, a sharp eye for the sea, and an aloha spirit that made him the harbor's favorite storyteller, Randy was the kind of guy who turned ordinary mornings into memorable adventures. But this wasn't going to be an ordinary morning. A sudden commotion rippled through the harbor. Something big was in the water. A broadbill swordfish, between 4 and 6 feet long with a 3-foot bill, had made a surprise visit to the calm harbor waters. Swordfish, often called gladiators of the sea, were more at home in the open ocean than a quiet harbor. The sight of this formidable creature caused a buzz, and Randy saw it as more than just a spectacle. it was an opportunity. Swordfish meat was prized for its taste and value, and landing one in such an unexpected spot could be a career highlight. Wasting no time, Randy grabbed his spear, dove into the water, and set his sights on the fish. One of his crew members, equally amazed by the spectacle, began filming what would tragically become Randy's final act. The swordfish, living up to its gladiator nickname, wasn't about to go down without a fight. The spear hit its mark, but things quickly spiraled out of control. The fish became entangled in a mooring rope, turning the harbor into a chaotic whirlpool of thrashing water and raw power. Like a scene out of a seafaring thriller, the swordfish reversed its charge, its sharp bill becoming a lethal weapon. In one devastating move, it struck Randy in the chest with enough force to pierce muscle and bone. His crew, horrified, pulled him from the water and worked frantically to save him, performing CPR until paramedics arrived. Despite their efforts, Randy was pronounced dead at the hospital. The news spread quickly, and the tight-knit sport fishing community of Kailua Kona was left stunned. Swordfish fatalities were virtually unheard of, making the freak accident all the more incomprehensible. Randy wasn't just any fisherman, he was a husband, father, and friend who left an indelible mark on everyone who knew him. His wife Rachel, 21-year-old daughter Kia, and 8-year-old son Austin were devastated, grappling with the unimaginable loss. Beyond his family, Randy's generosity and larger-than-life personality had touched countless lives. His cousin, Bomboy Lanes, shared stories of Randy's kindness, how he would invite strangers to barbecues, offering food, laughter, and a warm welcome, even when he could barely take a day off himself. As the community came together to mourn, they celebrated Randy's bravery, dedication to his craft, and his ever-present aloha spirit. Fishermen who had shared the highs and lows of life at sea with him gathered to honor his memory, recounting tales of his skill, courage, and infectious laughter. Whether the swordfish's fatal strike was an act of intent or a panicked reaction, the result was the same: a great man was gone too soon. Randy Lanes, the harbor's beloved captain, left behind a legacy of love, adventure, and a reminder that even in the face of the sea's unpredictable dangers, his spirit would forever remain as vast and enduring as the ocean itself. On June 7, 2024, tragedy struck Disneyland in Anaheim, California. Bonnie Mavis Lowe, a beloved employee with 24 years of service, tragically lost her life in an accident that shocked the Disneyland community to its core. Bonnie, 60, had spent her career at Club 33, the exclusive, iconic private dining club in New Orleans Square. On that fateful day, she was a passenger in a golf cart traveling through the backstage area near Critter Country. The cart, moving at about 20 miles per hour, hit an unexpected bump. Bonnie instinctively reached for the handrail to steady herself, but it failed, either loose or unable to withstand the sudden force. Without anything to hold on to, Bonnie was thrown from the moving cart, landing headfirst on the ground. The impact fractured her skull, causing severe brain swelling. Emergency responders rushed to the scene, stabilizing her and transporting her to the hospital. Despite doctors' best efforts, Bonnie was declared brain dead by the morning of June 9, 2024, and passed away the following day. The loss was felt deeply throughout the Disneyland resort. President Ken Potrock expressed his sorrow, offering support to Bonnie's family and colleagues. But in the wake of the tragedy, questions quickly arose about the circumstances of the accident. Bonnie's colleague, Ray Delgado, took to social media, demanding answers. She highlighted the failure of the handrail as a critical factor in Bonnie's fall, and called for better safety measures in the park. The incident raised serious concerns about Disneyland's safety practices. Was the golf cart properly maintained? Why did the handrail give way? Investigations focused on determining whether any mechanical or design flaws played a role. The Disneyland community, devastated by Bonnie's passing, was left searching for answers, determined to prevent such a tragedy from happening again. Bonnie had dedicated 24 years to making Disneyland a place of magic, and her death underscored the fragile balance between joy and danger that exists behind the scenes. Her legacy lives on, but her tragic death leaves the Disneyland family questioning how something so preventable could happen in the happiest place on Earth. It was a warm April evening in 2016 in a small village nestled in West Java, Indonesia. The stage was set, and the crowd gathered to see Irma Bula, a 29-year-old mother of three who had carved out a niche in the vibrant yet cutthroat world of dangdut music. Known for her bold performances with live snakes, Irma was more than just a singer. She was an act you wouldn't forget. That night, though, she gave her audience a show that would be remembered for all the wrong reasons. Irma, whose real name was Irmawati, or Anang to her friends and family, wasn't just any dangdut performer. She had climbed her way to local fame thanks to a gimmick both daring and downright dangerous: dancing with live snakes. Not your average pythons with taped mouths, mind you. Irma often shared the spotlight with creatures that could star in a nature documentary's most terrifying moments. That evening, Irma introduced the star of her act, Ranti, an 18-foot king cobra. To put it mildly, king cobras are the stuff of nightmares. They're the world's longest venomous snakes, capable of delivering a bite so deadly that even a medical drama couldn't dramatize it enough. And Ranti wasn't defanged or restrained. Nope, she was the real deal, venom loaded and ready for her close-up. As Irma began her performance, the crowd was in awe. The snake slithered around her shoulders while she sang and danced, her voice soaring over the gasps of the audience. She'd done similar stunts before, often with safer snakes, but Ranti wasn't the usual docile python, and this time the stakes, or rather, the snakes, were higher than ever. Midway through the set, Irma's choreography took a fatal misstep. Her foot landed on Ranti's tail. The cobra, understandably offended, struck back with lightning speed, sinking its fangs into Irma's thigh. The audience gasped as Irma froze, the shock of the bite momentarily halting the music. A handler rushed to her side with an antidote, but Irma waved him off. The show, she decided, had to go on. And go on it did, for 45 excruciating minutes. Despite the venom coursing through her bloodstream, Irma kept singing, her voice defiant against the cobra's neurotoxins. But the poison wasn't about to let her steal the spotlight. As she powered through her set, her body began betraying her. She vomited, convulsed, and stumbled, but still, she refused to leave the stage. By the time Irma collapsed, the crowd had fallen silent. The once vibrant performer lay motionless as her crew scrambled to help her. They rushed her to the nearest hospital, but the venom had already done its grim work. Irma was pronounced dead shortly after arrival, her life cut short in the pursuit of a performance. News of Irma's tragic death spread quickly, leaving fans and locals reeling. Adding a layer of heartbreak, her mother revealed that Irma might not have known Ranti was venomous or untaped that night. In her world, snakes weren't just props, they were also her defense. As it turns out, Irma's slithering co-stars weren't just for show. According to reports, she may have used them as a buffer against overzealous audience members. In the male-dominated world of dangdut, female performers often faced harassment during shows. Snakes, it seemed, were her way of drawing a line, though, tragically, it was a line she herself would cross. Irma Buli's story isn't just one of ambition or danger, it's a haunting reminder of the extreme lengths some performers go to captivate their audience. It's also a sobering look at the risks they face, not just from their acts, but from the world around them. That night in West Java, the music didn't just play on, it struck a chord that echoes with equal parts awe and sorrow. In the bustling Ventra Ionia Auto Parts factory in Michigan, the air hummed with the rhythmic clang of assembly lines and the whirring choreography of robots. It was a symphony of steel and sparks, a place where machines outnumbered humans. And yet, in this mechanical metropolis, Wanda Holbrook was a standout star. At 57, this maintenance technician from Grand Rapids was a rare presence in the male-dominated world of robot wrangling. She wasn't just fixing machines, she was taming them, turning tantrum-throwing robots into obedient workers with her almost magical touch. Wanda had spent 12 years navigating the complex labyrinth of industrial automation. Her peers admired her not just for her unparalleled expertise, but for her calm, unshakable demeanor. She was the go-to person when things went south, a sort of robot whisperer who could troubleshoot a problem faster than most people could find the on-off switch. In a world dominated by metal giants and relentless schedules, Wanda was the human glue holding everything together. But on July 7, 2015, the unthinkable happened. It started like any other day at the factory. Wanda arrived early, ready to conquer the challenges of the 100-cell area, a vast 800-square-foot arena where robots performed a carefully choreographed routine of bumper welding. It was like watching an industrial ballet, where every move was precise, controlled, and predictable. Except, on this day, it wasn't. A robot in Section 130 decided to go rogue. For reasons still unclear, its arm swung wildly, breaching the invisible boundary into Section 140, Wanda's workspace. In a split second, the machine's erratic arm struck her with brutal force, crushing her between its mechanical limb and a hitch assembly. The once harmonious dance of the factory turned into chaos. By the time her co-workers noticed something was wrong, operations had come to a screeching halt. Wanda, the factory's dependable cornerstone, was gone. The news spread through the factory like wildfire, leaving everyone reeling. Wanda wasn't just a colleague. She was a mentor, a friend, and a rock for so many. Her family husband, Bill, their children and grandchildren were devastated, and the community mourned the loss of a woman who had dedicated her life to keeping things running smoothly. The factory, once a hub of efficiency and routine, now felt like a haunted shell of its former self. But this story didn't end with sorrow. Bill, grieving but determined, refused to let Wanda's death become just another statistic in the world of industrial accidents. He wanted answers and accountability. Taking his fight to the courts, he filed a lawsuit that turned heads across the industry. His claim? The robot that killed Wanda should never have been able to enter her workspace. It was a catastrophic failure of the factory's safety systems, and Bill was ready to name names. The lawsuit pointed fingers at several companies responsible for the plant's automation big players like Protomax, Flex and Gate, and Lincoln Electric. Bill accused them of negligence, arguing that those who designed, built, and maintained the robots had failed to ensure their safe operation. The rogue robot from Section 130, he argued, had no business wandering into Section 140 or trying to load a hitch assembly in a place it didn't belong. This wasn't just bad luck, it was a systemic failure that needed to be addressed. Wanda's death was one of the first robot-related fatalities reported in the U.S., making the case a grim milestone in industrial history. It served as a wake-up call for an industry that often prioritizes efficiency over safety. The incident underscored the critical need for robust safety measures, rigorous testing, and constant vigilance in environments where humans and machines share space. In the end, Wanda's legacy wasn't just about the machines she fixed or the factory she helped run. It was about the lives she touched and the lessons her tragic death taught the world. She reminded us all that no matter how advanced our machines become, the human element, the care, the caution, the connection must never be overlooked. It was January 15, 2024, in the coal-rich town of Dart, Queensland. The Saraji South coal mine, a hub of ceaseless activity and roaring machinery, began its day like any other. For 27-year-old coal miner Luke O'Brien, this was just another shift. Known for his passion for mining and speedway racing, Luke had a zest for life that resonated with everyone who knew him. But this day would end in tragedy, leaving a permanent scar on his family, friends, and the entire mining community. The morning unfolded uneventfully until the unthinkable happened around midday. Luke, alongside a co-worker, was tasked with towing a stuck B-double fuel truck. It was a routine operation, one they had done countless times. But fate had other plans. Standing between the tray of a light utility vehicle, Ute, and the truck's bull bar, Luke was focused on his task, unaware that his life was seconds from ending. In a sudden, horrifying turn, the ute rolled backward. The crushing force pinned Luke against the truck. Time seemed to stop as workers rushed to his aid, their shouts swallowed by the rumble of machinery. Emergency services were called, but the remote location meant they wouldn't arrive for over an hour. When paramedics finally reached the scene, Luke was rushed to Dart Hospital. Despite their best efforts, his injuries were catastrophic. By evening, the unthinkable became reality. Luke was gone. The news of his death rippled through the tight-knit mining community like a shockwave. Luke wasn't just a miner. He was a son, a friend, and a beloved member of the speedway racing world. His parents, Iet and Taryn O'Brien, were left shattered, their grief pouring out in heartfelt tributes. "Our hearts are broken," his mother wrote. His father, a longtime racer himself, shared the unimaginable pain of losing his youngest son. Friends and colleagues flooded social media with memories of a hard-working, spirited young man who lived life to the fullest. The tragedy didn't just leave a hole in the lives of those who knew Luke, it sent a chilling reminder of the inherent dangers in mining. Resources, Safety and Health, Queensland, RSHQ, launched an immediate investigation, joined by police and safety inspectors. Early findings pointed to procedural failures, fueling outrage within the industry. Questions loomed. Could this have been prevented? Were safety protocols ignored? Operations at the mine were halted, not only to investigate but to allow workers to process the loss of their colleague. Leaders across the industry voiced their sorrow, with Adam Lancy, BMA's asset president, emphasizing a renewed commitment to safety. Meanwhile, Queensland's Resources Minister, Scott Stewart, delivered a somber statement, calling the incident a heartbreaking reminder of mining's risks. Luke's story resonated far beyond the coalfields. The racing community at Mozart Gladstone Speedway remembered him as a fierce competitor and a humble soul who respected everyone he met. Friends like Glenn Payne recalled the joy he brought to their lives, while colleagues mourned the loss of a man who was more like family. This wasn't just an accident. It was a devastating loss that exposed the fragile line between routine and catastrophe. Luke's death serves as a wake-up call for the industry, sparking demands for stricter protocols and better oversight. His family and friends continue to fight for accountability, hoping to prevent another family from enduring the same pain. Luke O'Brien's legacy is a stark reminder of the risks workers face every day. Behind the machinery and progress are lives, irreplaceable, valuable, and deserving of protection. His story is one of heartbreak and resolve, ensuring his loss will not be in vain. The MGM Grand in Las Vegas was buzzing on June 29, 2013. The audience settled in, brimming with anticipation for Ka, one of Cirque du Soleil's most daring productions. Known for its mind-bending stunts and jaw-dropping choreography, this wasn't your typical night out. It was a spectacle. Among the performers that night was Sarah Gouillard-Guillot, a seasoned acrobat and aerialist with over 2 decades of experience. Hailing from Paris, Sarah wasn't just a star on stage but a dedicated mentor, sharing her craft with aspiring performers. As the final scene approached, the tension ramped up. Performers readied themselves for a dramatic battle on a vertical stage, a sequence that looked as impossible as it was breathtaking. For Sarah, it was just another night of defying gravity, soaring high above the crowd. But this time, something went terribly wrong. Sarah was lifted into the air, her every movement a testament to skill and trust in the safety gear that had always been her invisible co-star. Suddenly, a horrifying snap cut through the music. The wire rope holding her had broken. Sarah plummeted nearly 100 feet into the stage pit, vanishing from view. At first, the audience thought it was part of the show. After all, Cirque du Soleil is known for its audacity. But when Sarah's screams pierced the air and her fellow performers' faces turned from performance-ready to sheer panic, it became heartbreakingly clear that this wasn't scripted. The curtain fell, and an announcement informed the stunned crowd that the show was over. Refunds were offered, but the night had already etched itself into their memories for all the wrong reasons. Sarah was rushed to the hospital, but at 11:43 p.m. the unthinkable was confirmed. she was gone. The tragedy marked Cirque du Soleil's first on-stage fatality in its 30-year history, shaking the company and the entertainment world to their core. In the days that followed, the Nevada Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA, launched an investigation. What had gone so catastrophically wrong? The findings painted a grim picture. A combination of insufficient training and faulty equipment had caused the tragedy. The wire rope had snapped because it scraped against a sharp edge during Sarah's rapid ascent. The performance had become a perfect storm of oversight and danger. OSHA didn't hold back, issuing citations and fines totaling over $100,000 between Cirque du Soleil and the MGM Grand. The revelations were devastating. Inadequate training, flawed safety protocols, and a harrowing reminder of the risks in high-stakes performances. Cirque du Soleil suspended CA immediately, plunging into a company-wide re-evaluation of its safety measures. On July 16th, the show resumed, this time dedicated to Sarah's memory. Her tragic death became a sobering milestone, spurring the company to prioritize safety in ways they hadn't before. Sarah wasn't just a performer, she was a mother of two, a beloved teacher, and an inspiration to many. At Cirque Fit, the circus fitness program she co-founded, her students mourned her loss deeply. Tributes flooded in, painting a picture of a woman whose passion and kindness had left an indelible mark. Her accident also highlighted the broader dangers of pushing the boundaries in live entertainment. While Cirque du Soleil is renowned for its daring innovation, Sarah's death forced the industry to confront the inherent risks. She wasn't the first casualty. Others had been injured or killed during training sessions or performances in years prior, but her fall underscored the urgent need for vigilance. For Cirque du Soleil, Sarah's passing became a turning point. Safety protocols were overhauled, and lessons learned from her tragedy rippled through the performing arts world. It was a painful reminder that even in the pursuit of brilliance, no one is invincible. Sarah's story is one of talent, dedication, and the ultimate price paid in the name of art. While her death remains a somber chapter in Cirque du Soleil's legacy, it's also a testament to the resilience of a community that refused to let her memory fade. Zachary Freeman Muse was a 25-year-old firefighter from Waterford, Ontario, whose life was all about chasing flames and making a difference. Employed by Summerland-based Big Cat Wildfire, Zachary worked for a private company partnered with the British Columbia Wildfire Service. Though it was only his first season on the job, his passion and dedication were as clear as a roaring fire in the night. On July 28, 2023, Zachary found himself facing one of his toughest challenges yet, a fierce wildfire at Donnie Creek, a remote area north of Fort St. John. The terrain was rugged, the fire was wild, and the stakes were sky-high. But Zachary wasn't one to back down. Alongside his fellow firefighters, he worked relentlessly to tame the flames, showing the kind of courage and grit that had already earned him the respect of his team. Then came the tragedy. While navigating the hazardous landscape on a utility task vehicle, UTV, disaster struck. The UTV lost control on a gravel road and plunged down a steep drop. The accident was as sudden as it was devastating. Despite the quick response of his colleagues, the severity of Zachary's injuries was undeniable. He was airlifted to the Fort St. John Airport in a desperate bid to save his life. But despite the heroic efforts of the medical team, Zachary succumbed to his injuries en route. The news of Zachary's death hit like a gut punch, sending shockwaves through the firefighting community and beyond. His passing was a sobering reminder of the dangers faced by wildfire crews who put their lives on the line every day in some of the most treacherous conditions imaginable. British Columbia Health Minister Adrian Dix called the incident an enormous tragedy, a sentiment that echoed across the province as people grappled with the loss of a young hero. An investigation was quickly launched by the RCMP, the BC Coroner Service, WorkSafe BC, and the BC Wildfire Service to understand what went wrong and prevent future tragedies. Meanwhile, Zachary's family and friends were left to navigate the heartbreak of losing someone who had so much more to give. At Zachary's funeral, the community came out in full force to honor him. Hundreds gathered, including his family, friends, and firefighting brothers and sisters. It was a deeply emotional ceremony, filled with tearful tributes and stories that painted a picture of a man whose kindness, bravery, and unwavering commitment had touched countless lives. One of the most poignant moments came when Zachary's uncle, Paul Cranch, a retired 40-year spoke on behalf of the family. He shared stories about Zachary's close bond with his father and the pride his dad felt knowing his son had lived out his dream. Though the grief was overwhelming, there was comfort in knowing Zachary had pursued his passion with his whole heart. In the wake of the tragedy, Zachary's family issued a heartfelt statement, expressing their devastation and gratitude for the outpouring of love and support. Determined to honor his memory, they launched an online fundraiser for the Canadian Critical Incident Stress Foundation's Camp Faces program, which supports families coping with loss. It was a fitting tribute to a young man who had dedicated his life to helping others and embodied compassion and generosity. It was a seemingly ordinary day on June 6, 2024, at the University of Chicago Comprehensive Cancer Center in Hyde Park, a construction project that symbolizes hope and progress. But for 27-year-old construction worker David O'Donnell, it would be his last day on Earth. Perched high above the ground on a scaffold, David was diligently working alongside Jeffrey Spurka, a seasoned ironworker. Neither man could have imagined the horror that was about to unfold. The project, overseen by Turner Construction and involving multiple contractors, had been running smoothly despite mounting tensions over safety concerns. Workers had warned about the scaffold's precarious attachment at the southwest corner, warnings that fell on deaf ears. Adding to the growing danger, Chicago's unpredictable weather took a menacing turn that morning. By midday, winds were gusting at over 40 miles per hour, but work continued. The scaffolding, towering over 100 feet above the ground, was tethered by a fragile piece of plywood, a makeshift bridge that would soon become a symbol of neglect. As the wind howled, witnesses below watched in horror as the scaffold began to sway violently. Panic rippled through the construction site, but for David and Jeffrey, there was no escape. Then it happened. A thunderous crack echoed as the plywood connection gave way and the scaffold began to collapse. David, without a harness or rope to anchor him, plummeted over 80 feet to the ground. Rescuers fought desperately to save him, but it was too late. David succumbed to his injuries. Jeffrey, though critically injured, miraculously survived, cushioned by a pile of PVC pipes that broke his fall. His survival came at a cost: severe brain and body injuries that would alter his life forever. The tragedy sent shockwaves through the construction industry. Questions swirled like the wind that day. Why were warnings ignored? Why was work allowed to continue in such hazardous conditions? Investigations by OSHA and other agencies uncovered a chilling truth: basic safety protocols had been overlooked. The plywood bridge, secured by a few flimsy nails, had been a ticking time bomb. The aftermath was a storm of lawsuits and shattered lives. David's grieving family filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Turner Construction and Adjustable Forms Incorporated, citing gross negligence. Jeffrey Spurka, scarred physically and emotionally, sought justice through his own legal battle, determined to hold the responsible parties accountable. Both families fought not only for compensation but for something greater: change. Their lawsuits exposed glaring safety gaps and demanded accountability. David's death became a harrowing reminder of the human cost of cutting corners. Meanwhile, Jeffrey faced a long, grueling road to recovery, haunted by the trauma of that fateful day. As the construction industry watched closely, the case became a rallying cry for better safety standards. For David's family, justice meant ensuring no one else would suffer the same fate. For Jeffrey, it was about reclaiming his life and demanding a system that values lives over deadlines. This wasn't just an accident, it was a preventable tragedy, one that reminds us all of the fragility of life and the devastating consequences when safety is treated as optional. It was a night like any other on July 13, 2024, in the lively beachside town of Salinopolis, Pará, Brazil. Ayers Sasaki, a 35-year-old rock singer with a heart as big as his talent, was headlining a concert at the Solar Hotel. By day, Ayers was an architect, but by night he rocked stages across Para, building a loyal fan base since 2017 with his electrifying energy and passion. That night, the crowd packed the venue, buzzing with excitement to see their beloved Ayers perform. But midway through the set, disaster struck. A soaking wet fan, how they got drenched nobody really knows, made their way onto the stage, wrapping Ayers in an enthusiastic bear hug. In that split second, a nearby cable short-circuited, sending a fatal shock to Ayers. The crowd froze in horror, the music stopped, the lights dimmed, and chaos erupted. Despite frantic efforts to save him, Ayers tragically passed away, leaving his fans, friends, and family in a state of complete disbelief. Born in Belém, Ayers had worked tirelessly to make his mark in the music world, even opening for São Paulo's hardcore legends, CPM 22, in 2021. Music wasn't just a career for Ayers, it was his soul. He shared this passion with his wife, Mariana, a nurse who had been his biggest supporter. They had been married for just 11 months, their whirlwind romance captured in bittersweet social media posts. In October 2023, Ayers shared a wedding video with the caption, "Eternity awaits us, my love." Those words, once full of hope, now serve as a heartbreaking reminder of their tragically short time together. The local police quickly launched an investigation, working to untangle the mysterious circumstances surrounding the fan and how they managed to get on stage. The Solar Hotel expressed their deep regret, offering support to Ayers' family, but it felt like a small consolation in the face of such a devastating loss. Ayers' death sent shockwaves through Brazil's music scene. Tributes poured in from friends, fans, and fellow performers. Adriano Frus, a close friend, fondly remembered Ayers' tireless dedication, recalling how he once played for 12 hours straight because the fans simply couldn't get enough. Comedian Nato Almeida spoke of his kindness and unforgettable stage presence, while filmmaker Rafael Masso shared memories of their college days, still struggling to believe Ayers was gone. Though Ayers' life was cut tragically short, his impact endures. His music continues to resonate with fans across Brazil, and his unwavering dedication to his craft remains an inspiration. Ayers Sasaki lived for the music, and though his curtain call came too soon, his melody lingers on, echoing through the hearts of those who knew him. In the early hours of October 11, 2012, when most people were still wrapped up in their blankets, dreaming of coffee and bagels, the Bumblebee Foods plant in Santa Fe Springs was already buzzing, pun intended, with activity. This wasn't your average 9-to-5 joint. It was a well-oiled machine where industrial ovens churned out enough canned tuna to feed armies of sandwich lovers. Among the dedicated crew was 62-year-old Jose Melina, a seasoned employee who knew his way around the plant better than most people know their own kitchens. Jose was one of those reliable guys, the kind who showed up early, rolled up his sleeves, and got the job done. That morning, he was tasked with a routine maintenance check on one of the plant's industrial ovens. Now, calling this thing an oven is like calling the Grand Canyon a ditch. This beast could cook tons of tuna at once, operating at a toasty 270 degrees Fahrenheit. For Jose, though, it was just another day at the office. Armed with his tools and years of experience, he climbed into the belly of the machine and got to work. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the plant, a co-worker was loading up the next batch of tuna. Picture this: 12,000 pounds of fishy goodness, all ready to be cooked to perfection. Unfortunately, in the hustle and bustle of the morning, the co-worker assumed Jose was off grabbing a cup of coffee or chatting in the break room. Without a second thought, they shut the oven door, locked it tight, and hit the start button. Inside the oven, Jose quickly realized something was terribly wrong. As the temperature began to rise, he tried to shout for help, but the plant's machinery was louder than a rock concert. Imagine the panic. The kind of nightmare scenario you wouldn't wish on your worst enemy. 2 excruciating hours passed before anyone realized Jose was missing. By the time the oven cycle was complete, the unthinkable had happened. When the oven door finally swung open, the horrifying truth left everyone in shock. Jose was gone, and the plant was plunged into chaos. News of the tragedy spread quickly, leaving employees, friends, and family grappling with the loss. But the story doesn't end there. What followed was a legal and ethical reckoning that shook Bumblebee Foods to its core. Investigators discovered glaring safety lapses. Basic protocols that could have prevented the tragedy had been ignored. The company's industrial ovens lacked simple safety features, like a lockout mechanism to ensure no one was inside before operation. Bumblebee Foods faced a $6 million settlement, the largest in its industry's history. The plant's operations director and safety manager didn't escape unscathed either. They were hit with fines, community service, and criminal charges. As for Bumblebee, the company scrambled to save face, pledging to overhaul its safety practices. They upgraded their ovens, implemented stricter protocols, and launched training programs to ensure such a disaster would never happen again. But let's be real. No amount of money or corporate reform could undo the heartbreak Jose's family endured. For them, this wasn't about settlements or safety upgrades. They had lost a husband, a father, and a friend, and no legal resolution could fill the void he left behind. The tragedy at Bumblebee Foods became a sobering reminder of the high stakes of workplace safety. It wasn't just about following rules, it was about protecting lives. For workers across the country, Jose's story served as a wake-up call, a haunting example of what can go wrong when corners are cut and assumptions are made. In the end, Jose's legacy is a bittersweet one. His story sparked change, forcing companies to take a hard look at their safety standards. But it also left an indelible mark on everyone who heard it, a reminder that behind every job title is a human being with a family, a life, and dreams that deserve to be protected.